The crossroads discussion will be about the DEI and how relevant it is to colleges right now with the changes that are happening in the administration, including possible changes to our college. So if you have opinions, thoughts, please start talking. Also, since this is like our second to last meeting, next week will be our last meeting. I brought chocolate, so if you see chocolate on the table, like grab a piece, take one with you, all that stuff. And a attendance sheet will be going around a little bit.
Okay, yeah, you might want to, oh, you have some over there too, good, okay. For those of you who might be newcomers who haven't been here before, we do this every Wednesday at noon right here. Open forum, anybody can participate, bring friends. Next week will be our last one for the semester, but we'll be back in the fall. And we welcome your input as to topics. Feel free to jump in at any time. We'll be talking about DEI today. So who wants to start the conversation going?
I'll take a stab at it. DEI is such a controversial thing, literally. Like we see it in everything. Do you saw like a few days ago, like on the White House website, they're moving Harriet Tubman and Susan B. Anthony from White House website because DEI. You guys heard about that? It's crazy, right? I'm sorry.
I guess there's a lot of like mixed reactions to DEI for different reasons. Some of them I understand in a way of like when it comes to college applications and specifically that kind of field where you're like, should this person get like more leeway than another person, and like, the percentages and stuff that has changed over the years. But I think having places that provide like cultural awareness and having like a space to celebrate multiple cultures is a really good thing, and it helps with diversity and learning, and I think that makes education like it can help with like education. So I don't think it's something that needs to be gotten rid of entirely. I don't know if everybody here knows that recently the MSA department that is in the bottom of Hogue is possibly going to be removed over the summer because of some of the like them trying to pass to get rid of all of the DEI stuff, including possibly the MSA department here. That's not necessarily coming directly from the University of North Georgia, but coming from the university systems of Georgia is like pushing that for all of the colleges, and possibly our multicultural center could be affected by that. Do you guys have like any thoughts, opinions on that, or like?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, because we read about it in one of our classes, or one of the books for American presidency, but it reminds me a lot of when, I believe it was Reagan, tried to kind of target, these like left, you could say it's like a left organization. I wouldn't, personally say that a multicultural student affair at a university is, a left ideal, but as his administration sees it, it might be. And I think when he tried to go after these, it kind of had the same effect. And like when we were talking about the Department of Education as well, and like the funding that's coming from the Department of Education going to these things that are like organizations that are really important and really helpful to students. So I feel like what he thinks he's doing or what he's attempting to target with these, it's not, I don't think it's accomplishing anybody's goal, and I think it's impacting people who need it the most along the way.
Well, it's certainly become polarized. It's become polarized, and I think it's become partisan. Or maybe I should say it from the beginning it has been. I don't know that there have been questions about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's what DEI stands for, that have been bipartisan from the start. So it reminds me of the term politically correct 40, 45 years ago. Essentially what that term meant, it was a catch-all term. And it was a term that meant, I don't like what you're saying. That's pretty much what it was. Label something as that, and in a sense it's an attempt to stop an argument rather than to start a discussion. Do people see the same thing here, or am I wrong? Yeah.
Well, I would just say, like, not only do they not, say that, but I would even interpret it as, like, oh, I don't like you. I don't like what you do. I don't like, maybe your culture or your anything. It's just, like, very, I guess, offensive in a way, and it's just, like, very not, it's not helpful for anybody. Like, what does it accomplish? Like, really. That's why.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I kind of forgot to include that, kind of along that line, I think what they are trying to accomplish is that by their logic, getting rid of DEIA would allow us to return to, like, not return, but to implement more of like a merit-based system. And the way that they've been able to target DEIA by basically just saying that it prevents from a technical merit system. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that is what they are trying to go after, and it is kind of easy for them to say that that's the case.
I think the problem is that they're going with like a big stick method almost, and just like trying to wipe out every single thing and not necessarily focusing on the merit system, because I know that has been like the contingency part of it that people have been kind of going back and forth over. And honestly, I have nothing against a merit system, but they're also like defunding museums. They're threatening to like defund like there was it was a zoo that had like stuff like information about like, hey, this is an endangered species, you now have to remove that it says endangered. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they're not going about
Same
it the
thing
right
with
way,
like
for sure.
the multicultural department. Their idea isn't necessarily to try and like make sure that they're like multicultures are like above
Right,
like
we're not trying to like graduate liberals out the
and
door.
it's like
not.
it's for like all cultures. So you have like people from I know that they had like a thing for like Polish, German, they have like Latin American, Asian, African American. Like they do events for like all different cultures, bringing that forward for us as students to both experience and have like a safe place to like express our like own like cultural ideas and experiences, because America is such a melting pot of different things. I think that it is a good thing for a college to be able to provide, and the fact that it's being like pushed so vehemently out the door, when honestly the main thing that was a problem to a lot of people was the merit-based system, I think is like it's spreading it way too far.
Yeah, I think it's unfair the way it's being carried out.
Well, I was going to bring that up a second ago. I'm glad you guys mentioned that, because I was going to bring that up, that the argument is often, to play devil's advocate, the argument is often that we shouldn't have programs like this because everything should be based on merit. It should be the best. We should simply go about choosing the best. But are those two things mutually exclusive? Are you really getting the best by eliminating outreach to, let's say, marginalized groups?
I do feel like what you're talking about, the approach right now feels like they're taking a sledgehammer. I personally do not believe like a meritocracy is achievable, and I do not believe that we live in a meritocracy. Just because of how just human interest works, just like how true capitalism or true socialism, in my opinion, is not achievable, so is a meritocracy. Because we're just humans, right? We're gonna try to find a way to circumvent everything. And it's the same thing with education, it's the same thing with government contracts, it is the same thing with almost anything we can do in jobs. You might not get a job because you're the top student in your field. You may get a job because you know someone, right? These are out factors that help you and collaborate you. And I feel like going after DEI and initiatives that are trying to represent people of different cultures, people who might have not been represented historically for long periods of time, it's disingenuous when you're not doing the same thing for legacy students in like many other places. People who have the advantage of having all these money, and then just because their parents attended the same college, they're able to attend too. And they see that and they're like, but that's fine because they have generational wealth, and it's the merit of them having money. And I feel like it's display and be integrated into those communities. And they see that as a zero-sum game, that there's so much jobs they can have and they're outward losing on them, so they much rather take that competition out.
I absolutely agree with that, and I think like adding on that, like I feel like when you're looking at jobs and like applications and that sort of thing, you can't like really take out like I guess like diversity, like DI, like you can't just like wipe out everything and be like, all right, we don't care about your gender, your race, like anything. We're just gonna like shove all that out and then just work on merit. So we're just gonna work on like what degrees do you have, this and that, and you can't really do that. Like we have to have a system where we have some sort of not bias, but see different cultures and different genders and different people and experiences. And like you said, I mean, different people have different experiences, and that can play a very important role in what you'd be good at and what your job application will say about you. I mean, when you have like different experiences, different cultural experience, things like that. So
Others?
I think at least with like jobs and stuff that DEI is a weird thing to consider, like because both it's needed and both there's like drawbacks to it, because then you have like the idea of like maybe this person just only got in because they're filling in this slot, but also like you've had like such a long history of places not allowing women, not allowing people of color to work in different fields and to be represented. So it was an idea to prevent that from happening, but also now it's like this, people don't want that to happen, but they also don't like that there's like designated areas, so it's like a catch-22 almost.
Go ahead.
I feel like it's a good point to make, right? And then you would see a Latino woman doctor, and a lot of people assume she got that position only because of the AI, right? It would be disingenuous. It is awful to think that way, but the reality is there are people who genuinely think that way, and you pull up to the doctor and you see that and you're like, man, I got stuck with a DEI doctor. Maybe she's not as competent as a regular doctor might be. But then you're faced with your implicit bias, right? You think that the only person achieved that only because she was forced upon that position. And the truth is, then we should be looking at a more competitive market, right? We should be seeing at someone just to get that basic level of being a doctor should go through a more rigorous process, which I'm saying getting to be a surgeon, to getting to be a doctor, there are big requirements for that. So she already passed those requirements, and now she got in because she's historically being given that access to many other women of color do not get. So she already cleared those hurdles, and she's going to continue to grow as a professional, hopefully. And it's just the process of going through that and accepting that we just simply do not see those people as deserving of those titles. We see them as less able to complete these jobs as another person of a certain ethnicity or gender. We might believe that they may perform that task. So it is cultural, and saying that we should just get rid of bias, it's impossible, because everyone has a bias for something, right? You may see a white gardener and you're like, man, maybe my lawn is not going to be cut the way I want, right? It's just to put an example, but I've seen the cases, and I've seen the cases of Mexicans and Latinos saying, I'm never going to let a white man touch my grass. And it's funny, because these are the same people who work with white people in the gardening industry, but it's something that's real. It's something that has happened, and we do have these biases, but it's recognizing them and recognizing that sometimes these assumptions are just to make it easy for us to understand the world, and that life is more intricate than how we may perceive it.
I mean, even on the similar thoughts that like I feel more comfortable whenever I have a woman doctor because I feel like they can understand me better. Not saying that a man can't, but because they've gone through all of the same like education, but there is some level of like comfortability having like a woman be able to see my like issues, and I think that's something that is definitely needed in a lot of environments, to be able to see that you are represented and that you feel like not only that you're welcome, but you're also understood. And I think that's needed in almost every environment, from like professors to doctors to like basically every type of job field. It's just that the way that our society was built with a lot of discrimination that it's now like we're having like a wave of issues left over from that. It's like, how do you go about trying to fix that without causing other problems?
Well, what about broadening that a little bit and asking about role models? You talk about feeling more comfortable with one doctor than another. What about what about education? We're in a university. What about taking courses? Do you feel that you would be better off if there were faculty who were, or if there were more faculty who were more like you? Or, I'm using university because we're in a university setting, but we could really generalize that to any place, anywhere. So I'm asking generally about the idea of role models. Do we want to have people, and can we justify diversification to benefit the next generation, so to speak? Go ahead.
I would say that yes, it is beneficial, but I wouldn't say it's a necessity.
Okay.
Like, for example, now that I have become a political science major, I've noticed it's like the longer I go on, the less female teachers I have, which disappointing for me personally, like, but you know, I can get over it. But I don't think it's like impacting my education one way or the other just because I do have professors that maybe don't represent my personal, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe it plays to what I have considered to be one of the biggest American strengths. I believe that the concept of what it constitutes being an American, it's less tied to what ethnicity or what religion or what you are. At least what my concept of it has been is like, you come in, you put in the work, you try to be the best of what you can, and you just belong to this in-group that is not tied specifically to a race or to an ethnicity, but it's tied to this concept of civic nationalism. And it's this civicness and this idea of like, you can be American just by the merits of wanting to be an American, aspiring for this monolith. It might mean different things for us, but it's this plurality. Like, we hear it all the time, and I've heard it ever since I came to America, the melting pot, where, oh, we're the melting pot, oh, we're the melting pot of this. And understanding that, well, yes, I might sometimes just feel like a little bit easier to approach a professor who might speak Spanish, who might be Latino, who might be Colombian. It is only the first step. And I feel like ultimately what it does help me taking that first step into connecting with that professor, there's also this beautiful thing that I can do of connecting with someone who is absolutely nothing like me. And I ultimately gain more from reaching out and being with someone who is absolutely fundamentally different than me. Because ultimately that entails stepping out of the comfort zone. And there's not going to be any innovation, there's not going to be any change, it's just going to be sameness all around. There's no point on every doctor being the same, thinking the same, because then there would be no use for innovation. There would be no use for, if everything stays the same, then everything is the same, right? In my opinion, forcing ourselves to be uncomfortable in the areas that matter, such as the military, such as doctors, such as fields in which we need innovation, is necessary for us to improve ourselves. And I feel like it ultimately is a very American thing to be diverse.
Let me press that just a bit and ask, what about the situation where you can only be uncomfortable? And by way of example, I brought up faculty before. The University of North Georgia started out 152 years ago as North Georgia Agricultural College. And they've always prided themselves as having a female in the first graduating class. Okay, you'll see that in all of the promotional stuff for the university. Okay, and the university recently celebrated its 150th anniversary, or at least that's the Dahlonega campus anyway. But even though they celebrated 150 years in 2023, the first full-time female faculty member in the political science department was not hired until 1998. Okay, in fact, I was on that hiring committee. Okay, and I had already been here for 5 years, and that's the first time any female had been hired by the political science department. Does that matter at all? Again, I certainly understand that you're talking about, we do have to be uncomfortable at times. And in fact, we'll be more comfortable if we are exposed to people who are not like us. But what about the situation where you have no choice throughout your entire political science career?
Okay. Yeah, I do agree. A benefit of DI absolutely is being uncomfortable. Like yesterday, we were just talking at the end of class about like the Gainesville campus and how like lively and just fun the Latino community is over there. And I think it does matter, but we're not really considering, I don't think, the end goal of DEIA. Like, do we just do this forever to make sure that these positions are filled with enough people to meet, I don't know, the objective definition of we have enough diversity on our team today? Like, it's just, I think it should be like, okay, yes, we find a way to get these women in here and to make sure that, you know, maybe they're like consistently replaced by women or something, but I just don't think we're looking to like the end. Like, do we just continue doing this forever, or do we find a way to actually implement people into society, be so uncomfortable that everybody can be like assimilated and more comfortable around one another? Like, when does it end, I guess?
I feel like what the problem for a lot of people is like, instead of they choosing themselves to put themselves out there and being uncomfortable because of the situations they find in, they are forced to be in those positions, right? Like, it's one thing if I do not want to talk to you and I just happen to have to talk to you because of you and I have to work together, then that's different. But now if Professor Gravoli comes and sits us together, like, you two are going to be a group for this project, then I'm going to be unhappy because it was not my decision to have to engage in that. So I feel like most of it comes from the idea of us having a choice on it. And to that point, to your point, what is the end of it, right? Like, there must be an end to this. There must be a path. And I feel like we're only going to be able to get rid of majorly of some of the DEI policies only when we ourselves as a culture change our views on how we see each other. And when we start seeing it as necessary, when we start hiring based on how do I account for representing these people because I know that their point of view might be interesting and they also have the qualifications, rather than I just want X people because I lack X people. So there must be an end to it, right? I don't believe that perpetuating a DI quota forever is going to be good, because then if I was just hired and I would be like always in the back of my mind, did I really get this job because of my merits or just because I was a number in the quota? And I feel like it's disingenuous for a lot of women, a lot of like other communities that try to put their effort into getting their stuff. But yeah, I do see your point. We cannot just continue in this path forever.
Okay, remind me, I want to go back to that point. We're going to go over here in just a second, but before we do, I just want to observe that I think you were bringing up, in a sense that you were almost bringing up the exact converse, the problem of the exact converse of what Anita was bringing up before, this sort of mindlessness. You were talking about the mindlessness of eliminating things just without thinking about it, just because there are certain words, just because you do a Google search and certain keywords show up, and you start deleting things just because of that. And you're talking about bringing people in, and to some extent I think you were talking about it too, bringing people in a sense mindlessly without regard to qualifications. And so something that's more beneficial would be something at least somewhere in the middle, where we are taking into consideration both the idea that everybody should be given a chance and that we do want people who are qualified. We don't want to mindlessly throw people into a position without thinking about it, nor do we want to mindlessly exclude people because of a particular position. But you had your hand up.
What I was going to say is that it definitely isn't a black and white situation. Obviously, there's that gray area that, you know, Nick was mentioning. Like, you have to put yourself in these awkward positions, in these awkward situations, and you learn from it, and you help other people learn, you know, about your background, about your culture, about maybe your struggles. And I definitely feel like, you know, I wouldn't want to be put in a position where they just hire me or give me an award or something just because of my, you know, my background. And, you know, coming to this school, like, I I've mentioned this to some people before, like I didn't know it was like, there's not a lot of diversity here. I didn't know that when I came in here. So like, when I was already here, I was like, well, there's no point of me leaving now. There is, I could, but I'm gonna stick it out just to see, just to experience. I feel like people are not doing that enough, and they're not having these conversations, so it makes it polarized, like what you're saying. So I just think that putting yourself in those awkward positions, in those awkward situations with maybe some groups of people that you wouldn't normally hang around with is important, and it's just like beneficial for your life overall, because we have to remember like the concept of America, it's also like a melting pot. Like it's all of us together. It's not just one group and all together.
I just want to point out that as not diverse as it is, this is far more diverse than when I started here. There's been a lot of changes.
Yeah.
It's not nearly enough. It does not reflect the population. And in fact, they used to publish the numbers. They don't do that anymore because the numbers were just so lopsided. And again, it's getting better, but it's going like, you know, from here to here.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Getting back to your point about I think you talked about numbers or quotas or something. Yeah. This gets back to the argument over affirmative action. And a couple of years ago, of course, the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in and of itself. But for many, many years, it was federal policy and state policies around the country. But even with that, affirmative action never meant, and in fact, the courts and the government specifically prohibited affirmative action from meaning quotas or percentages. There were court cases, and we talk about this. Those of you that are in my American government class, you're going to hear about this when I get to it. I should have already, but we'll get to it. But there have been court cases where states and universities have had what they refer to as affirmative action programs that the courts have seen as pretty much nothing but filling quotas, setting aside a certain percentage of faculty positions or student recruitment or contracting or something like that. And the courts have said that's not what affirmative action is all about. It's about outreach. It's about making the effort to go out to other communities. And I think what we're doing right now is, since technically affirmative action has been struck down by the courts, we've kind of invented a new phrase to go after. We don't have that enemy anymore. I'm doing air quotes here. We don't have that enemy anymore. And so we've kind of invented another phrase that we can go after. But and I'd actually like to hear your input on that. Is it more of the same thing?
It's not necessarily on that topic specifically.
Okay, that's fine.
Back to what she was talking about a minute ago. At least I think that having things like the Multicultural Center is really important for this college and this campus specifically, just because we have like a very small minority groups that are here. Like there's not like a lot of people that are here that are like minorities. And having grown up in Dahlonega, I love this place. It's my home. There's some of the sweetest people that you can meet here in Dahlonega. But I've also experienced some not great things. And I was worried about like for other students and stuff when they first came here, because I wasn't sure what the campus would be like when I first started. Because I've had like threatening mail from like the KKK, and my house has been egged. I've been like threatened, been spat at, and like it still exists. It's gotten like as growing up, it's gotten a lot better, but I know that that's still here. Having lived here, I know like what like neighborhoods you might want to avoid just because like they are like known skinheads and other stuff, like more like the extremes of that. But I know that exists here in Dahlonega, and actually being like one of the first people to welcome me was the MSA department, and to welcome like basically every student. They are always there with like their desks and stuff, and they're like have events where they have cookies and other stuff. And it made me happy to be able to see that there was like a space where people were like immediately welcomed from every culture, and to see that like now possibly leaving and knowing that we already have very little minority here in Dahlonega, and knowing that there are areas here that aren't the safest, it makes me really sad to see that possibly go, because I want this place to be a safe and welcoming place, because it is my home too. And yeah, it's just a long spiel.
I think on that point, like, community is so important, and I feel like that people of different cultures need to feel like they have a community, and that they have a place to be safe, and like a safe kind of place. And I feel like a lot of like what you were saying with how this is kind of just like a new monster because they don't have affirmative action anymore. I feel like, especially in like the media and like the rhetoric on kind of like more like a heavily right-leaning site, or like I guess like media attention is on like the fact that, oh, there's so much DI. I mean, look at this movie with like, like they're just switching it out from like a white person to like an African American or something like that, and I feel like it's all just social media stuff. Like I feel like there isn't that kind of diversity and just like pushing like this like agenda, I guess, of like DEI like anywhere else except for the media. Like I feel like every other thing other than maybe like TV or like movies, you have to, like you said, you have to go through a very rigorous process to get where you are in your job and whatever you do, and that DEI only helps people feel like they're included in the community and that they have a safe place to be, that they don't have to worry.
At least if we bring it back to like home stuff, like here in Dahlonega, like the first people that were welcoming to my family were a family that helped with the English as a second language that my dad was trying to get better at, like speaking English. And they are still like grandparents to me. They still like, they bring me like birthday gifts, I go over their holidays, it's like their family. And having different people, like organizations that do like LA or like things like this, or the multicultural student apartment, I think are just so important because of how it like welcomes everyone in and makes people feel like safe and at home. And I feel like the problem with the getting rid of like the DEI is just like, I'm kind of repeating myself, but going to like the sweepingness of it. Like I had mentioned earlier before, like they're trying to get rid of like all like woke media and like stuff, and that involves the government and facilities of the government. And I think that they're going about it too extreme. Like even if they are wanting to, I mean, it's a Republican-run administration, it would make sense for them to have like more Republican wording, to have like their like meanings and stuff out there. But like threatening to defund zoos for having anything to do with climate is like, it's an extreme. Getting rid of like historic websites that have like things like you had mentioned earlier about like Harriet Tubman and stuff. That's not helping anyone. It's just hurting people. It's hurting histories. It's hurting like the availability to like get histories and cultures out there to people. That's how we like learn about our fellow man. At least if we're talking about the MSA department, I know that they've helped out with so many different events going from like Native American, African, Polish. I know that they did a thing for Ukrainian students too. They just like to be able to like actually have a place where you can learn from other cultures, I think is incredibly important. And the way that they're going about it, it's like exasperating. Like it's just too much. And it's not necessarily accomplishing what I think that they're wanting to accomplish, or at least some of them are.
I understand, and with you, I completely agree with the sweeping motion that is being affected. I see a lot of things that are just, I don't see the ultimate point of it, right? Like I saw these news about the Weather Channel not being able to provide updates of any kind in any other language, right? Like there's so many immigrants who just don't speak English as their second language proficiently and who are not able to get this information. How does that benefit any of us for people not to know what the weather is going to be like, right? But if there's any emergencies, they don't have access to any of the other kind. So it's putting people at a disadvantage, right? We have to find a way to make this game a more even playing field. And I feel like these are easy topics for any type to seek for a division and to sell people that there is an easy answer for what they consider to be wider systemic problems. DEI, you're probably not getting jobs because all the black people, the Latino people are taking your jobs, right? You're probably, all these people are siphoning your money and siphoning this. These are just, in my opinion, people pissing in your ear and telling you it's raining. So they're trying to point at the symptoms of something that's greater and trying to sell you as that is the problem itself. I'm not saying they might not have some right points, and sometimes, you know, as you were saying, they got rid of the ideas of quotas, and I absolutely agree with that. We should not be implementing people with quotas because it's not always fun having big government tell you exactly what to say. There are some points in which the left and the right can completely agree about things that are just not going to be happening. But the idea of I am losing because someone else is taking steps to be at my same level, so I need to keep that person down, I don't think it's going to benefit anyone.
Okay, we're gonna go all the way over here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a common theme with this administration is that they're basically they're quite literally creating scapegoats of people and saying all of our problems are on this certain group of people and we want them to be removed. And they're using their executive power to basically try and start this, in a sense, this pogrom and to get rid of mainly, you know, Latino people, but also other people of different ethnicities. And I think like this sort of battle of DEI is a complete smokescreen to basically like obscure what's actually happening, and that is a sort of mass hysteria on blaming these really global, extremely complex issues on like these certain groups of people who are just trying to like live their lives and, you know, contribute to the economy. I know that with the recent, I mean, we quite literally say like there's a gulag in El Salvador that the president is sending, you know, undocumented immigrants to, and it's this is scary. Like they're targeting people and sending them there, and this is like the pathway to fascism. You know, it's and I know that we hear that word a lot, but like this is how authoritarians rise, and it's very scary, and we need to do something about it. And I think with the sort of criticisms of DEI and like quotas and whatnot, and affirmative action, like in my opinion, the way in which we create more diverse and integrated communities is by helping minority groups. You know, it's going to the root of the cause, and that is, you know, decades of sequestering off minorities and ghettos and depriving them of education, jobs, and health services. Because even, you know, I live in Metro Atlanta, which is fairly diverse. But just because it's diverse doesn't mean it's equal. And I can see where the lines are crossed, sort of economic segregation of where certain people reside. And we need to address those root causes economically, politically, to actually create more sort of melting pot ideal that we want to aspire to be.
I'm not sure like how extreme things will end up going, but I mean there's definitely a consistent history in the country of being like anti-immigrant, specifically like going all the way back to like Irish Italians, basically everybody who came through like Ellis Island, to Hispanics, to like basically there's like an otherism trying to find a different person to blame, and it's easy to blame the newest person here. That they're the problem, totally not us. I will. I had more points. My brain is like, when you have like 3 sentences and they kind of mush. Oh, I did have a joke earlier that maybe will lighten the mood, but I don't know if y'all saw like the they like all the deportation and stuff that's been happening, and how like anti-China the administration is, and how China keeps threatening to take away the pandas. I saw like a thing about like he's gonna deport the pandas. I thought it was a cute meme.
Let me ask this about the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs. I don't know that anything's been confirmed yet, and so that's still something to consider. Nothing's been made official, but is there a reason to close it down? Have they done anything wrong? Are they a waste of student tuition fees, taxpayer money?
Not that I know of, not provides a safe haven for minorities in that club, literally. Like for example, if I was a gay man, I would be safe in there because for example, my parents could throw me out of the house, literally. It would like, comfort me, like literally, you okay here, like you accepted here, this is college, you can do whatever you want, literally. I don't think it's not a waste of money. It's your choice, literally, to be in that club, literally.
Okay.
At the very least, like they provide a lot to the students besides just like multicultural events. They offer a place of study, staff study in there, and it's a nice place to study. It's like a little bit more secluded in Hogue, but there's still like noise, so you're like, I don't know, I like studying in there. There's also like it hosts a lot of club events, so a lot of the cultural clubs will meet there. They've helped out with different events for like other clubs or other like department stuff. So like I know that they helped out with like it's like a cultural art heritage. They helped out with the Heritage Art Gallery. They helped promote it, and they had like students helping out over there for that. And they do a lot at the college here. They're always welcoming people. They're always having like food and stuff out. I think that they do a really great job over there, and the people that are over there are so sweet.
Go ahead.
I feel like, to your point, like you two have listed like a variety of reasons why they are important to have, and how much they provided. Like they are a group that provides so much for the students, and then for UNG to be a school that prides itself being like the students first, and then just immediately, without asking students, without like conducting any type of political activism, just be like, you know what, never mind, ask them. It's what's the point of having that kind of slogan if you're not going to do it?
So there is a very hard discussion to have when it comes to that, because I've mildly talked to some administration about the MSA department, and things are like rapidly changing. That at one point they thought like, no, of course they're going to be able to keep the MSA, and then I heard like words from like other students, some previous like SGA members and stuff, that something happened through the Georgia legislator that could possibly affect the MSA, and then that's why everybody is worried about it being removed this summer. It wouldn't necessarily be by UNG's own, like this was their idea, but that it would be coming from the university systems of Georgia.
Then I would question that. I'm not saying, of course, and I didn't want it to come across as like it's coming from UNG, right? But I'm saying, like, at what point are we, like, if we are claiming to be an university that's really in charge of caring for our students, are we just gonna sit down and enjoy it and let something like that happen? Are we as students, and to that point you're talking about contacting other people with multicultural student associations to unite? Because I am not a fan of government being able to say what goes on in universities on cases like very important case of security, right? But it's not like we're committing acts of terrorism in our multicultural student center. It's an association that gives us so much, and then for that to be taken from us without anyone at the state level, at the university level, engaging with us and talking about policies only because it's considered DEI, it's disingenuous to the whole process of education. That just someone, because it's up there, can just say, I do not like this, and universities fail and we as students fail to stand up for it, it can just be taken away. I think it gives leeway to people who are in power to just be able to enact these policies if we do not speak out.
Okay, I think that's a good closing statement. We have one more week. Anidia, do you want to take us out for today?
Sure.
And do we have anything particular planned for next week?
I believe next week will be open mic, so kind of bring
Whatever you
whatever
want to talk
issues,
about, right?
whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm planning on, if I have enough time, I'm going to bake cookies. If not, I'm going to buy cookies. So if you guys like cookies, come for that too. It should be fun. Also for officers, if you guys could stay for like a couple minutes afterwards, I wanted to talk about like getting ready for next semester, because I think it'll be great, and even just like seeing our two co-vice presidents talking here today, it's great getting to see the discussion. So hope to see you all next semester and also next week.
All right, good.
Very good.
Yes, also everybody